Chapter 14 of Life in a Thousand Worlds. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Laura Koskinen. Life in a Thousand Worlds by William Shuler Harris. Chapter 14. A World of Low Life. When one witnesses an exhibition, he must, of necessity, look upon the poorer parts of it. This was my experience in my universal journey, for on some worlds which I visited I found that human civilization was at a low ebb. One of the most notable of this class is the world next beyond Dorlin. This sphere is 1,000 times as large as ours, and the beastly creatures that inhabit it are 4 times our size. The toilers in the deep valleys of Mars are favorably intelligent compared with these specimens of humanity. For convenience, I will call this world Scum. Its people are so constituted that their 2 arms can be used as legs, so it is quite common to see these Scumites travel over their planet like the more graceful of our quadrupeds. Their walking, however, is principally after our fashion, and they can change about at pleasure. Either way of travel seems as natural as the other. When they walk on 2 limbs, the body is erect, presenting a stature of such gigantic proportions as to overawe a representative of our world. According to the universal standards of symmetry, these giants have an animal beauty that is anything but handsome, and they also lack those facial expressions of higher intelligence that come only through generations of cultured thinking. Their health is quite perfect, and they live to a great age. These Scumites have a language singularly their own. It is so totally different from any of our conceptions of speech that I can scarcely find words to describe it. The medium of conversation is the notched rod. It is about 12 feet long, with various kinds of notches cut along the 2 sides. Such a stick is possessed by every Scumite who expects to hold extended or descriptive conversations. It is usually held by a skin strung around the neck. While one of these persons is talking, 2 or 3 of his fingers pass from notch to notch along the rod. These indentures of the rod represent, in their language, certain kinds of sounds, and are used to assist the vocal organs in expressing the more intricate combinations of ideas. Naturally, the listener watches the fingers more than the mouth. It is amusing to see a Scumite busily engaged in delivering a speech to a few of his fellow creatures. It would remind you of a person playing a fife or a violin without producing any sound. The children of Scum learn this rod language just the same as our children at first learn to speak our language by observation and practice. The face of a Scumite does not resemble a human face of our planet. The mouth and jaws are at right angles to ours, and this arrangement seems to be just as convenient to these Scumites as the formation of our mouth is to us. The nose lies above the mouth, but is relatively much higher, its point coming between the 2 eyes, which are situated more toward the sides of the head. The startling fact about this world is that at one time in its past history fair intelligence reigned on a few parts of the planet. These intelligent sections were working their way upward on the measureless incline of progress, and had won some distinctions in their sciences as well as their religious devotions. These bright spots on the surface of this large orb were surrounded with large black patches of warlike humanity, and, between these 2 extremes, a warfare of subjection or extermination raged, without any hope or peace. The educated Scumites had a few advantages in methods of war, but with all this they were not able to withstand the vast hordes that swept down upon them. Brute force won the battle, and the accumulated light of 4,000 years flickered until it was no more. It was a fatal day for Scum when its mad inhabitants blew out the last of the candles that had promised to give them light. When this sad and blighting victory was accomplished, these uncivilized tribes rejoiced more hilariously than at one time our Indians rejoiced when celebrating their victories in the wild scalp dances. Thus the dark shadows fell on this huge world. The captured educated classes made a heroic effort to continue their cultured manners and religious life, but the prejudice against them and their ways was so great that they were compelled to live in the lower strata or suffer the pain of death. In process of time, the wild woods flourished where once the temples of science and pure religion reared their imposing pillars. What can we expect of such a race of people who have drifted from the light of civilization for so long a period? As I looked at their customs and their ways, I was reminded of a garden that has run wild. Here and there I could see traces of the once thrifty life now almost choked out by the overpowering crop of weeds. Gradually the people became worse and worse. Sin played havoc and built carnal fires around which these children of men gathered. Sensuality became the ruling passion, and, in less than 500 years of our time, the last family observance had died away, and these creatures wallowed in the quagmire of fleshly lusts, compared with which the brute life of our world is highly respectable. Free love was rampant, and human offspring was cared for by mothers, or at least by such as were willing to assume the task. No one was supposed to know who was his father. I saw this sad and sickening spectacle, against which my instincts revolted with horror. It is true that if man is left totally unbridled, he sinks to a depth which it would be impossible for any species of the animal creation to reach. As I continued looking on this low life with its horrors too numerous and too dreadful to mention, my thoughts flew back to the world whence I came, and to America where I was born, and I remembered of some who advocated free love. Let their arms be withered, I cried, rather than have such a thistle fasten itself in the soil of our social life. Let the libertine of our world go to the world of scum, where he belongs, or rise to the dignity of man, whose image he bears. Compared with our world, the physical features of scum are all fashioned on a much larger scale, and the mountains, rivers, and vegetation are 5 times greater than ours. So are also the many varieties of wild and domestic animals. The inhabitants of Scum are divided into many warring tribes, and it is fearful to see the conflicts that take place. During my brief stay, I witnessed one of the big battles between 2 of the stronger tribes. 150,000 men went dashing into an enemy of greater numbers. It was a football melee on a vast scale. Weapons were all of the hand-to-hand type, except the spear wagons, which were indeed clumsy weapons of war. Nothing is known of surrender or a flag of truce, so the conflict raged horribly to a bitter end until 80,000 bruised victors participated in the jubilant feast that followed. Over 200,000 Scumites lay dead on the field and along the mountain ridges. According to past history, another such great battle is not liable to occur for another generation. The past religion of these giants is not even on a par with idolatry. There are many saints sleeping in their graves, bright remnants of the time of the old civilization and religion. Amidst all this present moral wreck of humanity, there are a few indications that point to better times. The nobler people of Scum are banding together with the avowed purpose of bringing back the light of culture and refinement, but it will require several thousand years of determined effort to climb to the height from whence their ancestors were cruelly and thoughtlessly dragged. End Chapter 14.